Welcome students of grade 8 and peace be upon you. Today we're going to complete our lesson about the inflammatory reaction, characteristics and signs. Worksheet 4, part 2. The objectives of our lesson are: microbes such as bacteria, virus, protists and fungi are everywhere around us, trying to invade our body. They first face the elements of the natural barriers, such as tears, saliva, skin, stomach acid, and cilia. These elements act as the first line of defense against any invader, preventing their entrance. But if any element of the first line of defense fails to protect the body, the pathogens invade our bodies and encounter the second line of defense, including the inflammatory reaction. In this reaction, the effector cells are monocyte and granulocyte. These cells act non-specifically since they act the same no matter what the pathogen is, causing a non-specific immune response. After the thorn pricked the baby's finger, how can we tell if inflammatory reaction takes place? What are the signs of the inflammatory reaction? When does it happen? And what are its characteristics? Let's find out. This figure shows an inflammatory reaction after an injury, which is a very important reaction in defending our bodies. And it has important characteristics. What are these characteristics? There are 4 characteristics of the inflammatory reaction. The first one is rapid, which means it occurs immediately after infection. The second one is local, which means it occurs at the site of infection. So, if there is a skin infection, immune response will take place at the level of the skin, while if it's an eye infection, it will take place at the level of the eye, not the skin. The third characteristic of the inflammatory reaction is protective, which means that the role of the inflammatory reaction is to protect the body from pathogens. The fourth characteristic of the inflammatory reaction is non-specific, since it acts the same no matter what the pathogen is. As we can see, the macrophage destroys different types of pathogens in the same way. Then, as a summary, let's list the 4 characteristics of the immune response inflammatory reaction. The first one is rapid. The second is local. The third, protective. The fourth characteristic is non-specific. After we learned the characteristics of the inflammatory reaction, we should now learn the signs of the inflammatory reaction that alert the body about inflammation. Do you remember this boy whose finger was pricked by a thorn? What happens to his skin around infection? Here is his hand before and after infection. Let's compare his finger in the 2 cases. Excellent! It becomes red and swelled or bigger. Then, after infection, an inflammatory reaction occurs, showing some signs such as redness, which means the area around infection becomes red, and swelling or edema, which means the area around infection becomes bigger in size or swelled. Actually, this is what happens in an infected leg, causing redness and swelling of the leg. But why do redness and swelling occur? Let's compare the blood vessels in stages 1 and 2. Stage 1 is before inflammatory action and stage 2 is after inflammatory action. Excellent! The blood capillaries after the inflammatory action is larger. Then, blood vessels dilates or enlarges during an inflammatory reaction. But why do they enlarge? From these figures, we can see that this enlargement allows more white blood cells to reach the inflammatory area. As shown here, a leakage of fluid and leukocytes to the infected area occurs. But what do this cause? The leakage causes redness in the infected area and swelling. Then, what's the cause of redness and swelling of the infected area? Excellent. It's the enlargement of blood vessels and the leakage of fluids and leukocytes from the blood capillary to the infected tissue. Therefore, the first two signs of the inflammatory reaction are redness and swelling. But what's the third sign of inflammatory action? Let's find out. Have you ever touched an infected skin? How did it feel? Cold or warm? Excellent. It felt warm. Fire is hot, and I know that you felt very hot when you've had a bad fever. But why? We mentioned before that more leukocytes reaches the area of infection. But what ensures this movement is the increase in the blood flow in capillaries to the area of infection, holding a bigger amount of leukocytes, causing warmth. Therefore, what causes warmth? An increase in the blood flow causes warmth. Excellent. Actually, fever has different effects on human being and pathogens, so that while you feel bad when you've got the flu, you should actually thank it for helping you, destroying whatever it's that trying to hurt you. Then, till now, we learned the three signs of the inflammatory action that are redness, swelling or edema, and fever or warmth. But what's the fourth sign of the inflammatory action? Let's find out. In order to know the fourth sign of the inflammatory action, I would ask you this question. What would you feel in the infected area? Excellent, you feel pain. Then, the fourth sign of the inflammatory action is pain that we feel after an injury or infection. But why do we feel pain? Part of the reason we feel pain is because our bodies have millions of nerves that help us move, think, and feel in all kinds of ways. Each tissue has a specific type of nerves that are called local nerves. For example, these are the local nerves in the neck, and these are the local nerves in the chest, and these are the local nerves in the shoulder. After infection, these local nerves are stimulated. Stimulation means an action that creates a response or message. But how are these local nerves stimulated? They are stimulated by the chemicals that are secreted by the infected cells, causing them to send a message to the brain that we are in pain. As a summary, the inflammatory reaction is the second line of defense. Its characteristics are rapid, local, and protective. Its non-specific immune response, and its signs are heat or warmth, redness, swelling, and pain. The next time, we'll describe the process of the inflammatory reaction where pathogens are destroyed. This is all. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Study well and keep safe.